Welcome to Half 2-4. Today in the issue, the real locker room has turned into a fight club, and the players are looking for a rat. Mbappe is packing suitcases for Liverpool under pressure from 30 million fans, and City is preparing a record transfer. English occupation of Europe, Arsenal, Villa, and Palace are ready to take all three trophies in one season. Also today, where will Sancho run after the third final in a row and Arteta's new contract until 2029? About all this and much more, we are talking right now. 3 Euro finals, 3 English clubs, and a real chance to do what no country has ever done in one season: take all 3 trophies. Champions League, Europa League, Conference League. This is not fiction. This is May 2026. We will start with the biggest. Arsenal will meet PSG in the Champions League final on May 30th in Budapest at the Puskás Arena Stadium. For the Gunners, the first final in 20 years since that painful 2006 when Barcelona stopped them. And for PSG, a chance to become only the second club in the Champions League era after Real, which defends the title. Seriously, this is a dream final. But Arsenal got there the hard way. They became the first team in the history of the tournament to win all 8 matches of the group stage and went through the season without a single defeat. This is not luck, this is a machine. Now, the Europa League. Aston Villa will meet Freiburg in Istanbul. For Villa, the first UEFA final since 1982 when they took the Champions Cup. And yes, behind the bench sits Unai Emery, the man who won this very tournament 4 times. Freiburg, however, is in a continental final for the first time in its entire history. A classic underdog story against an experienced killer coach. And finally, the Conference League. Crystal Palace against Rayo Vallecano in Leipzig on May 27th. Both clubs for the first time in the final of any UEFA club tournament. But Palace looks like the favorite, and the Premier League is represented again. And do you know what is the craziest? This could really happen. 3 finals, 3 English clubs. If Arsenal, Villa, and Palace all win, it will be a moment after which all other leagues in Europe will simply be silent for a year. The PL is already called the best league in the world, but such a thing would become an absolute, undeniable argument. Personally, I think Villa with Emery and Palace are the real favorites. But Arsenal against PSG is already a real lottery. The French already knew how to stop the Gunners this season. Budapest will decide everything. There are players who collect trophies. And there is Jadon Sancho, who collects Euro finals. 3 years in a row, 3 different clubs: Dortmund, Chelsea, Aston Villa, and every time a final. This is either a genius of adaptation or simply the luckiest outsider in history. But the fact remains, the 26-year-old Englishman is again where few ever go, even once in their life. Let's recall the chronology. In the 2023-24 season, Dortmund Champions League final at Wembley against Real. In 2024-25, Chelsea Conference League final with a goal in the final and a goal in the semifinal. And now Aston Villa Europa League final in Istanbul. The score of personal finals: 1 victory, 1 defeat. Istanbul will decide. And now the main question: where will Sancho go in the summer? Manchester United has already decided not to extend the contract on July 1st. He becomes a free agent. A total loss of £73 million. The race for the signature has already begun. Borussia Dortmund is in the role of the favorite coach. Niko Kovac personally called Sancho and described his specific role in the team. This is a serious statement. According to information from Birmingham Live, Sancho himself considers Dortmund his dream club. But Aston Villa does not give up. The club is conducting an active dialogue with the player and his agents, offering a better financial package and football in the Champions League. In addition, RB Leipzig has joined the race, as well as several clubs from Serie A. If Sancho won the final with Villa, I bet he stays in Birmingham. Champions League plus a trophy is an argument that is hard to beat, even with nostalgia for Dortmund. But if Villa loses, the heart will pull toward Westphalia. 3 years of wandering through other people's clubs. Perhaps the guy just wants to go home. The Champions League final is in 3 weeks, and the Premier League is on the home stretch, and Arsenal is already thinking about the future. Romano just confirmed the club is preparing to extend the contract with Arteta. And the most interesting thing here is not even the fact of the extension, but when this decision was made. So Arsenal plans to offer Arteta a new contract in the summer. The decision was made back in March, regardless of the season's results. Think about it. March. That is, at a time when the team did not yet know if it would reach the Champions League final. At a time when it had just crashed out of the FA Cup against a team from the Championship, the club already said then, Arteta is our coach, period. The Spaniard's current contract is valid until 2027, so there is still enough time, but Arsenal does not want to wait. According to information from The Times, official negotiations are planned for the summer, and the new contract may extend his stay at the club until 2029. What does Arteta himself say? Romano notes that the coach is in love with the Arsenal project and is looking forward to negotiations, but right now he is fully focused on trophies. And you know what? This is the right decision. Not just right obvious. Arteta turned Arsenal from a team that fought for the top 4 into a Champions League finalist. This took 6 years of painstaking work. To extend the contract of such a coach is not a gesture of goodwill. It is elementary football logic. The only question, will they finally supplement the contract extension with the first serious trophy? The PL in Budapest will soon give us the answer. A bloodied Fede Valverde on the locker room floor, partial memory loss, hospitalization. And no, this is not a description of a new UFC tournament. This is the reality of the real training base in May 2026. The most titled club in the world did not just lose the season. It is literally burning from the inside, and the flame can no longer be extinguished with ordinary fines. Why did the Whites start beating the life out of each other, and who is actually leaking the leaders? Now we will break down this chaos in detail. So, to the facts that make your hair stand on end. Authoritative Marca and Mundo Deportivo confirm a repeat conflict occurred between Valverde and Tchouameni, which ended in a real bloody fight. It all started back in the morning. Valverde refused to shake hands with the Frenchman, which charged the training with hellish tension. The finale happened already in the locker room. Journalist Aguera reported that Tchouameni knocked Fede off his feet. He fell and hit his head on a table. The players found the Uruguayan bloodied and semi-conscious. He was taken from the base in a wheelchair. The result? Traumatic brain injury, a laceration, and from 10 to 14 days of medical leave. The scale of the event forced the management to call an emergency meeting right on the spot. Not a single player left the base while the bosses tried to understand how to live further. But it seems the locker room is already a powder keg, where everyone is holding a match in their hands. Rudiger is already attacking the 23-year-old Carreras for the second time. Mbappe and Bellingham are openly feuding, and a fan petition demanding the sale of Kylian has gathered 30 million signatures. 30 million. Can you imagine that? Valverde himself issued an official statement trying to put out the fire. He says that he accidentally hit the table, but at the same time admits there is a rat in the team who is spreading rumors. The worst part is that only 4 players trust coach Alvaro Arbeloa: Vinicius, Bellingham, Valverde himself, and Fran Garcia. The rest of the team simply ignores the Spaniard. My opinion, this is a total collapse of identity. Fights happen in many clubs, but I am seeing such a systemic collapse for the first time. Valverde's official version of an accident sounds like a bad joke, obviously. The club is trying to save Tchouameni from a disciplinary catastrophe. Now it is finally clear why Florentino Perez called Mourinho. Arbeloa has completely lost the wheel. Real now needs not a tactician, but a supervisor with a whip who will simply force these stars not to kill each other in the shower. And what do you think? Is it still possible to glue this collective together? Or does a major cleaning await Real in the summer, regardless of names? Kylian Mbappe and Liverpool, we hear this every summer, but in 2026 it is no longer just a rumor, but a real evacuation plan. While a storm rages in the Real locker room and players are taken out in wheelchairs, an unseen revolution is brewing behind the walls of the Santiago Bernabeu. The player who was expected for years is now being kicked out by 30 million people. Is Liverpool really ready to pull the Frenchman out of the Madrid hell? And why is Florentino Perez, for the first time, ready to say goodbye? Now we will break it all down. This story exploded simultaneously in the top media of Spain and Britain. The Spanish portal Fichajes was the first to report Liverpool officially registered interest in Mbappe. The material was immediately picked up by Caught Offside and The Independent. The logic is simple. After Salah's departure, the Reds need a new leader. And according to Football Insider, the English are among the few who can pull off this transfer financially. Let me remind you, back in 2020, the parties almost reached an agreement on a deal for £170 million. But why exactly now? The Athletic and Marca declare in one voice about Kylian's catastrophic behavior. While the locker room is burning from fights, and Madrid Zone and El Chiringuito savor the details of Valverde's hospitalization, Mbappe simply went on vacation. This was the last straw. In Spanish social networks, a fan petition demanding the sale of the Frenchman gathered 30 million signatures. This is the population of an entire country that no longer wants to see him in a white shirt. Even AS claims that there are no longer any untouchables in the real management. However, take a cold shower from the most authoritative insider. Fabrizio Romano has already managed to cool the hype. He directly stated, "Do not exaggerate. Relations are not destroyed, and there is no talk of a sale in the summer yet." That is, we have a situation where the Spanish media and fans are already packing Kylian's suitcases, and Romano is trying to keep this ship from sinking. My opinion, this is a classic transfer game, but with very high stakes. Mbappe in Real now is a toxic asset. When 30 million fans are against you and the locker room ignores you, even the status of a king will not save you. If Liverpool really lays out a solid sum, Perez may choose money and peace instead of daily scandals. But will Mbappe's ego fit into Arne Slot's system after all this chaos? This is a huge risk for the Merseysiders. And what do you think? Is Mbappe and Liverpool a salvation for the club or a new time bomb? Real Madrid this season is not a club, it is a series. Just as we talked about the fight and Mbappe's future, and here is a new bomb. Mundo Deportivo claims real players are convinced that Vinicius leaks information to Coach Arbeloa about conflicts in the locker room. They called him a rat. And this is in a club where there are already several fights, a petition against Mbappe, and a coach whom only 4 players trust. Okay, let's figure out what's happening. Regarding the contract situation, this is already an old and serious problem. Negotiations have reached a dead end. Vinicius demands 30 million euros per year. Real offers 20 million. The difference is 10 million. And zero progress. According to Radio Marca, in private conversations, Vinicius is significantly less confident in his future than publicly. He is dissatisfied with the atmosphere in the club and demands changes, including a new coach who will have a normal relationship with him. And here, Manchester City appears. Team Talk confirms. City is closely monitoring the situation and sees a rare market opportunity. Real made it clear if there is no deal, the player will go up for sale. Figures from 150 to 200 million euros are mentioned as a possible price range, but there is a nuance. Guardiola personally is not the main enthusiast of this transfer. He would rather have Rodrigo goes. However, the City management is very interested, especially in the context of a possible coaching change in the summer. Here is what is really important here. Even if the rat thing is an exaggeration and the locker room is leaking hurt egos, the contract situation is indeed critical, and with every week of this Madrid chaos, the probability of departure grows. If Mourinho comes as the new coach in the summer, everything could change sharply in one direction or the other. City, however, are just waiting on the sidelines and licking their chops. A smart strategy